Ryan is the founder and managing director, CEO of Abelian Consulting Services, a company that specializes in business and economic forecasting, risk management, and data analytics. He is an economist with over 13 years' experience modeling the macroeconomic business cycle and assessing the stability of the financial system. He spent 4 years at the Central Bank of Barbados, modeling the economy of Barbados, and has consulted on rebasing the Barbados economy since leaving the institution in 2005. Ryan joined the Risk Management Department of Motability Operations in the UK in 2006 as its asset risk analyst, where he conducted extensive risk analytics and economic capital modeling on the company's portfolio of assets worth £3.7 billion, with annual turnover of £2.2 billion. In 2009, he formed Abelian Associates in the UK, where he provided consulting services for companies such as MasterCard Europe, HSBC, and Zurich. Ryan has a BSc Economics and Mathematics degree from UWI with first-class honors, an MSc Econometrics degree from Manchester, and is a trained national accounts statistician from the IMF Institute. He's also a member and a former president of the Barbados Economic Society and chairman of the Trade and Economics Policy Committee at the Barbados Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Ryan is also a director of the Waterford Music and Cultural Society, a non-profit organization that is committed to the development and transformation of music and its practice among the youth in Barbados and the wider Caribbean. But Ryan's greatest achievement is that he is married to Jennifer and is the father of Kofi Ola. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Ryan.
Thank you very much, Stuart, for your kind words of introduction. Master of Ceremonies, Mr. Stuart Mears. Deputy Chairman of the Board of Management, Mrs. Amelia King-Roseman, and other members of the board. Ministry officials. Principal, Mr. Blair Parrish. Deputy Principal, Mrs. Beverly Nevlik Lashley. Reverend Arrington Messiah, Principals of other schools and tertiary institutions, President of the Combermere School of Scholars Association, Ms. Sharon Lewis Blackman, President of the Parent Teachers Association, Mr. Roderick Silvers, prize winners, members of staff, school captains, Kezia Ford and Marty Garrett, distinguished guests, parents and guardians, students, members of the media. Good afternoon. Let me again thank Stuart for his kind words of introduction. I'm every time I hear that, I think that I haven't done that as yet. But let me also, before I begin this afternoon's speech, let me also thank the love and the light of Jennifer for agreeing to visit the crisis here this afternoon. She's a QC girl, and as we were joking before we came on stage, if you get it reverend, not everybody goes to heaven. But suffice it to say, she calls me up on Friday to ask whether or not Combermere was at sports. And me being me, he gave him that when she was at school, she never really won much of anything. I mean, I was happy that she was happy. But I just had to let them know that sometimes you have to just step back and let other people shine. is something that I think is near and dear to the heart of every Combermere is actually engaging other people. It's very absolutely important. That said though, I think it's time for Combermere to reassert itself on the athletic stage. Me being a piece of athlete, as Mr. Mason would tell you, I think with the right intervention from September this year, I think we could take Straughan in 3 years. And the reason why I say take Straughan in 3 years is I'm happy that Straughan has demonstrated that it can win the sports. But as Combermere, I know that we can beat them. And I believe in Mr. Paris, your legacy will be enshrined in these calls if you are the principal to deliver that defeat of Straughan. Because for all the achievements that we've spoken about this afternoon, everybody likes a winner. And that event is seen as one of the pinnacle, one of the most even events for all schools to participate. And I think that's something that we should endeavor to make sure that we win again, because people get accustomed to winning or not winning. And we don't ever want that to happen here at Combermere. We need to win that again. Okay? But that's a subject for a longer discussion, not relevant for this afternoon's proceedings. As I was remarking earlier to your deputy principal, this is actually the first time we've actually attended speech day. I say that having spent 8 years here, and from the point of view that I've always been engaged in the parade prior to speech day and the entertainment, I've never actually sat in the audience and actually observed speech day. So I'm truly honored to be here this afternoon to deliver a few words on what I think is a very important subject, and it's something that, as an economist, we concern ourselves with these matters every day. The subject, limited resources, limitless possibilities, is very important to Barbados. Now, when the principal invited me to give this speech, I think mid-January or late January, I think it was, he indicated that he thought I was the right person to deliver a few words on this matter, given that I was an economist and given I seem to find myself in all kinds of controversy nationally. I would be the right person to deliver a few remarks on this subject. Now, before I do that, let me offer my heartiest congratulations to all those who will be receiving prizes this afternoon for their performance over the academic year. But I also want to say to those who are not being awarded that you must continue to work tirelessly to achieve whatever stated goals and objectives you may have. There's a favorite quote of mine by Vince Lombardi, coach of the Green Bay Packers football team in the 1960s, which is simply, the only place success comes before work is in the dictionary. Now, end quote. It is widely accepted that Barbados is one of the most resource-scarce countries in the world. We have invested heavily in education and health of our small population. And I believe it is this investment that has propelled our economic development over the past 50 years. It is the building of this social capital that has enabled Barbados to punch above its weight internationally, according to former United Nations Secretary General Kofi Annan. As Barbadians, we have retained and repeated this phrase with pride ever since, as we consistently rank the highest of any developing country on the Human Development Index. In 2012, Barbados ranked 38 out of 187 countries. The Bahamas and Antigua and Barbuda ranked 49 and 67 as the next highest countries, developing countries after us in the Caribbean. A review of the targets and indicators for education and health under the framework established under the United Nations Millennium Development Goals to track international development, Barbados ranks very highly as an early achiever of universal access to primary, secondary, and tertiary education, along with very low rates of infant and maternal mortality. Now, as economists, as I said earlier, we are by nature fixated with the allocation of resources. And in the case of Barbados is clearly no exception. A large portion of my speech will focus on some of the things we absolutely need to do for Barbados to truly achieve something close to our full potential. I offer only a few statistics, not a lot, I promise. But I want you to focus on the message and understand that despite the dynamics of the current economic crisis, some of the solutions I present, if properly implemented, will significantly impact the many overlapping generations to come. So, limited resources. Let me begin the analysis of limited resources by looking externally. As of March 26, 2014, the current estimate for the world population is 7.154 billion people by the United States Census Bureau. And it is projected this figure will increase to 8.004 billion by 2025. So that's not too far away. This is approximately a 12% increase in the world population in the next 11 years. Now, in 2010, the resident population in Barbados was approximately 278,000 people. Okay? So if you take into consideration the world population and our estimates, there are at least 25,725 persons, unique individuals, I should say, in the world for every Barbadian resident. Our current estimated annual population growth is just 0.5%. So, we've grown by that amount for probably the last 10 to 15 years, and there's no reason to expect that will change in that period of time. So by 2025, Barbados' population should be just under 300,000 people. So, when you look at the projections for world population growth and the projections for growth in Barbados, our growth rates will be significantly less than that of the world population. Now, what does this have to do with resources? Given that we are small, it is acute, and with our acute scarcity of resources, it is out of necessity that we look at the global market, the global population, as the marketplace. And we seek to move from beyond just punching above the weight, but we must strive to land knockout punches time after time, and be ruthless and relentless in our pursuit of excellence. Ladies and gentlemen, I have some news that may come as a surprise, or perhaps a shock to some of us living in Barbados today. The 21st century is already here. Everything has and continues to change, and Barbados is not ready. Let me repeat that again. The 21st century is here right now. Everything has changed and will continue to change. And sadly, I must admit, we are not ready. There are lots of areas where improvements can be made in Barbados. But in this, the 21st century, we must absolutely devise strategies that include strengthening our interaction with the international community. We must develop a new culture of international exploration, since we cannot rely on the domestic market to sustain the standard of living to which we have become accustomed. We simply cannot. Now, the temptation would be for me as an economist to talking about GDP and all these kinds of things. But this is speech day, and we're talking about achievements. And so it is easy for me now to pivot onto the state of the education system to demonstrate to you how its shortcomings are impacting our already very limited resources and impeding the access to those limitless possibilities that we know are out there. Now, all of our existing systems in Barbados are still very much rooted in the ethos of the 20th century. Nothing wrong necessarily with that. However, at every given opportunity, we seek to maintain the status quo, no matter the cost. Now, this is learned behavior that, in my view, is perpetuated by the education system. Our education system dislocates very many people from the natural talents. Human resources, which we claim are our most important resources, are very much like natural resources. They're often buried deep. You have to go looking for them. They're not just lying around on the surface. We must create the right conditions for learning, thinking, innovation, and creativity if we are to avail ourselves of those limitless possibilities. Unfortunately, our education system has mined our minds in a way that we strip mine the earth for a particular commodity. And for the future, it won't serve us. We have to rethink the fundamental principles on which we are educating our children. Now, I love Combermere very much. And it would be a pleasure for me if all schools in Barbados could display similar levels of pride and camaraderie as we do. I'm here today delivering this speech because of that love for Combermere. However, I love the country, Barbados, a whole lot more. And when I assess the record of our educational achievement nationally, I can only conclude that we are in fact failing a significant proportion of the population. We pride ourselves for having free access to education at the point of delivery for all Barbadians, but we have all collectively failed to monitor performance and make the necessary adjustments to close the achievement gaps. I'm just going to offer you some of those few statistics I mentioned earlier. Now, between 2000 and 2013, on average, just 23% of fifth form students in Barbados passed 5 or more subjects for the Caribbean Secondary Education Certificate. Now, when you look in the booklet here, our numbers are very good. But when you look at the situation nationally, we can't reach the same conclusion. It simply means that for that period of time, we have forced everyone and tried to fit them into the same box, as if it's a manufacturing process, rather than exploring other areas of their interests. Now, when you think about it, if you do that for just that 13-year period, and you continue doing that, you would have wasted the investment you're already making in education by not making the correction early enough. Now, we have built all our economic systems to cater only to a narrow spectrum of achievements at the expense of the vast majority. We frequently boast about our human resource potential, but in reality, we are operating at extremely suboptimal levels. So yes, we have achieved a whole lot in Barbados, but it could be a lot better. So though we openly acknowledge our resource scarcity, we intentionally omit and alienate at least 75% of the population through the current structure of our education system. Now, whilst a lot of emphasis at the moment is on the fiscal deficit of the government, I submit that in large part it is the education deficit, if left unattended, that will curtail Barbados' future development over the long term. Now, I can appreciate that in this setting it may be difficult to look beyond Combermere and look nationally in order to understand the impact that this is having actually on the development of the country, but it's something that we have to, I think, in my view, challenge the next generation to solve that problem. Let me turn to limitless possibilities and some of the things that we need to do to offer to achieve some of those possibilities. Now, Martin Luther King Jr. once said that, and I quote, "Nothing in all the world is more dangerous than sincere ignorance and conscientious stupidity." End quote. Nelson Mandela said, and I quote, "Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world." End quote. So, in my humble opinion, if we want to realize any of the limitless possibilities that exist in the 21st century and beyond for Barbados, then we must do three important things. One, stop learning. Two, start thinking. Three, start creating. Let me repeat that. One, stop learning. Two, start thinking. Three, start creating. Now, one of the real challenges is to innovate fundamentally in education. It's a hard thing to do. Innovation is hard because it means doing something that people don't find very easy for the most part. It means challenging what we take for granted, things that we think are obvious. The great problem for reform or transformation is the tyranny of common sense. Things that people think, and they quote, "Well, it can't be done any other way because that's the way it's always been done." We hear that a lot. End quote. This is the sincere ignorance and conscientious stupidity to which Martin Luther King was referring. You always hear people say, "It's always been done this way. It can't be done any other way." We have to stop learning that kind of mantra because it's counterproductive and offers no space for innovation. You can't innovate anything in the environment where people always say no. I go further. Reform is of no use anymore because that's simply improving a broken model. And as I've stated, through some simple statistics and the trends are there to prove it, we are excluding a large portion of our population through the education system. What we need is not evolution, but a revolution in education. I believe fundamentally that we make very poor use of our talents. Very many people go through their whole life having no real sense of what their talents may be, or if they have any to speak of. Now, human communities depend very much upon the diversity of talent, not a singular concept of ability. Now, I am proud that at Combermere we celebrate and produce and continue to produce well-rounded individuals. But this is not the same nationally. I think we have to change that as quickly as possible. Now, at the heart of the challenge is to reconstitute our sense of ability and of intelligence. But there are things we are enthralled to in education. Let me give you a couple of examples. One of them is the idea of linearity. As a mathematician and economist, I build linear models on a daily basis, or most of the time, and it's a fundamental concept. But the notion of linearity as it relates to education, that it starts here and you go through a track, and if you do everything right, you'll end up set for the rest of your life. That's the notion of linearity as it relates to education. Now, our parents, our grandparents will insist that we go to school and learn. Nothing wrong with that. You get a job, okay, preferably in public service, keep it for 33 and 30 years, retire, and you're set for life. That is the linearity to which I refer. There's one notion, one concept of how to progress in life. We have become obsessed with this linear narrative promoted with those we love and trust. It's difficult, very, very difficult to go against the people that you know, that you love and you trust. It is a very, very difficult thing to do. They don't mean anything bad by it, but we have to shape our minds of that mindset. This linearity concept is a problem, since many of our ideas have been formed not to meet the challenges of this century, but to cope with the circumstances of previous centuries. But our minds are still hypnotized by them. And we have to disenthrall ourselves of some of them. Admittedly, doing this is easier said than done. However, it's incumbent on my generation not to reinforce the education ideals of our parents and grandparents, so that our children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren don't repeat the same mistakes as previous generations. The other big issue is conformity. We have built our education system on the model of fast food. There are two models of quality assurance in catering. One is fast food, where everything is standardized. The other are things like Zagat and Michelin restaurants, where everything is not standardized. They're customized to the local circumstances. Unfortunately, we have sold ourselves into a fast food model of education, and it's impoverishing our spirit and our energies, as much as fast food is depleting our physical bodies. So I submit that we need a change of the education paradigm nationally in order to better utilize our already limited resources. Now, having given some thought to this problem of ours, I surmise that we have to go from a form what is essentially an industrial model of education, a manufacturing model, which is based on linearity and conformity and matching people, to a model that is more based on the principles of agriculture. So we need to recognize that human flourishing is not a mechanical process, but is an organic one. You cannot predict the outcome of human development. All you can do as a farmer is create the conditions under which they will begin to flourish. Now, technology, combined with the extraordinary talents of teachers, provide an opportunity to revolutionize education. And I urge all of us to get involved in it because it is vital not just to ourselves but to the future of our children. We have to change from an industrial model to a more agricultural model of education, where each school on its speech day can present the kind of performance as we've heard today from principal parents. We need each school in Barbados to flourish if we are to take advantage of all the opportunities that may present themselves to Barbados in the future. So first, we must rid ourselves of the self-induced phobia of technology in schools. And I go further and say we should not use instances of technological abuse in schools as an excuse for banning mobile technology. This may be good news to the students, but you too have a responsibility in this as well. The challenge for teachers and school administrators and students alike is to devise innovative ways of using such technologies to deliver a better educational experience to the 21st century student. Now, when I was going to school here, there was no internet in Barbados. And some of you, well, all of you here, the notion of the concept of there being no internet, no Google, but it's like drinking water, isn't it? You can't conceive of such a time when there was no Google. And so what I'm trying to say is that the administrators must understand, yes, that you are operating at a different time. You must find a way to make the technology relevant for delivering the education service which you are paid to do. Now, the Chief Education Officer is not here. I had a specific reference to him in my speech, but I'll just say to the ministry officials that are here. I think it's ridiculous for the ministry to have a ban on mobile technology in schools when you have science, technology, and innovation in your title. It does not make sense. So you either change the name or be more innovative in your approach to administration that is more representative of the 21st century. Now, to be truly innovative, I think the ministry should also revisit its policy on intellectual property in relation to teachers. Now, nothing stifles or discourages innovation more, particularly in the public sector, than the notion that what you have developed belongs to the government. I fundamentally believe, yes, the ministry should work to protect intellectual property, but it must do so in the interest of those that will develop such intellectual property, since it will benefit the students, the country, and the developers themselves. I believe they need to rethink that. Secondly, once we've gone over the technophobia, we should introduce art, computer programming, dance, drama, and music, both vocal and instrumental, to the curriculum at the primary level, with the same emphasis, and this is important, with the same emphasis we currently place on the teaching of mathematics and English. Please note my suggestions here are not exhaustive, because as I said, our current system is alienating very early on a large proportion of the population. Our education system should not be doing that. Okay? Should not be doing that. Sir Ken Robinson, an internationally recognized leader in the development of creativity, innovation, and human resources in education and business, cites 3 principles on which human life flourishes. And these principles are contradicted by the culture of education, under which most teachers have to labor and most students have to endure. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the results of your booklet doesn't say that for Combermere necessarily. But as I said, I love Combermere, but I love Barbados more. The first principle is that human beings are naturally different and diverse. Second principle that drives human life flourishing is curiosity. And the third principle is this, that human life is inherently creative. If you can light the spark of curiosity in a child, perhaps through my suggestions for an enhanced curriculum at the primary level, then maybe such sparks could be ignited. They will learn without further assistance very often, since children are natural learners. It is a real achievement to put that particular ability out, or even to stifle it. Curiosity is the engine of achievement. Now, there's no system in the world, education system in the world, or any school in any country that is better than its teachers. Teachers are the lifeblood of the success of schools. But teaching is a creative profession. Teaching, properly conceived, is not necessarily a delivery system. Now, I make that point to say that it doesn't matter how many teachers graduate from Erdiston, if you keep putting them into the same environment that produces the same results. It's a recipe for disaster. Teachers, however, should not become complacent and think that they are absolutely essential to the learning process. Now, based on the 20th century model of education, teachers were necessary but not sufficient to the learning process. But remember, it said children are natural learners. Under the right conditions, such as 20th, 21st century technology, teachers may find themselves becoming extinct because of their inability to adapt to a rapidly changing environment. So the message is simply, teachers must adapt and use all available tools to ensure that students avail themselves of all possible opportunities. Now, in the end, our job in the 21st century is to prepare these children and your children, at some point you will have children, for the 22nd century and beyond. Therefore, we must challenge our children to find and implement the solutions to the problems we, the adults, have left unattended for far too long. The world will not wait for Barbados to finally get it. We are small, and we must use that to our advantage and not weigh ourselves down with 20th century baggage. The technology is there, use it. Time and progress marches on. Whilst we sit and reminisce of the good old days, the longer we wait, the more traumatic the experience will be. Remember what I said at the beginning. Success comes before work only in the dictionary. It will be hard, tough work, and some of us, if any of us, may not witness its full manifestation. In order for Barbados, in order for any school, any institution to survive effectively in this, the 21st century, we simply cannot, one, exclude ourselves from using all available resources. Two, we must bring more people into the process of education so that Barbados can get the most out of it. And it does not matter how many people there are in Barbados, we must engage the world. So we must educate our children to engage the world, not to stay at home. Now, there's a wonderful quote from Benjamin Franklin. I quote, there are three sorts of people in the world. Those who are immovable. People who don't get it, they don't want to get it, and they are not going to do anything about it. There are people who are movable. People who see the need for change and are prepared to listen to it. And there are people who move. People who make things happen. End quote. And so I say, if through real education we can ignite sparks in more people, that will be a movement. And if the movement is strong enough, that's in the best sense of the word, a revolution. And that's what we need to better utilize our already very limited resources in pursuit of the realization of limitless possibilities. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you